It's intermission time. It's great to get out to the movies.
Let's do a little intro of you, and you can tell the listener who you are, what you do, your relation to the film industry.
Oh, well, my name's Oren Soffer. I'm a cinematographer in
Love
the
it.
film industry.
I love that. Cinematographer in my day-to-day.
Yeah.
This is a question that we ask every guest that comes on the show.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to pick a movie that describes your life right now, what would you pick?
The Big Chill.
Yeah. Okay. And why does that come to mind?
Just kind of in between projects right now.
Mm-hmm.
And
Big chiller.
that's what you do. That's what you do in between projects.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's a great answer.
Yeah. We're looking for the next feature. So, if anyone out there's got some scripts.
Yes, that is true.
Let us know.
Networking.
Yeah, exactly. But
big chilling, big networking.
big chilling, big networking. No, it's cool. It's good. It's nice to kind of like take the time. Like shooting a movie is intensive.
Mm-hmm.
You don't do anything else. I watch movies, but that's it.
Yeah.
I don't do anything else.
Yeah.
It was funny. The last movie I did was like during award season.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like a completionist. I'm like, I have to watch everything.
Good. As everyone who's voting should.
Yeah. So I'm like, I can't. I like on the weekends and everything. It's like, I mean, I love it. It's not homework, but it does also feel a little bit like
Totally.
Like, okay, how many screeners can I watch today? How many can I watch tomorrow? I need to be up to date.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like 4 a day.
That's sick. Well,
Yeah.
that's cool that between projects you can do that too.
Yeah.
And have the time to.
I could spread them out a little more.
Yeah.
Yeah, AMC A-list comes in handy.
Mm-hmm.
And then, commercials and other projects are pretty slow right now.
Yeah.
So the Big Chill.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I also am realizing I didn't even intro myself. Did I tell you my name?
No.
I'm Megan.
Hi.
I always do this. I'm Megan, by the way.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. I love, like we said before we started recording, I love when we do this in person because I just get to meet a lot of really cool people that love movies, and that's like the best time is just talking about movies.
Yeah.
So
I love talking about movies.
cool.
I feel like we don't talk about movies enough.
That's good to hear.
Like,
because
in
that's
my
what we're going to
life.
do today.
I'm ready.
We're going to get into a little section where we're going over just general movie taste to get to know you through what you consume. Can you just tell me some movies you grew up watching? Like, what are the genres you gravitated towards? What was your entryway into the film world?
Yeah, I was like a young, early movie kid. And the entry point for me was Spielberg, Amblin, Star Wars, like all of that kind of stuff. So, I basically knew Indiana Jones back to front. I was a Last Crusade kid. Like Raiders, I think I learned to appreciate later in life.
That's funny.
I always thought it was a little boring when I was younger.
Yeah.
Last Crusade was awesome. And I will die on that hill.
We love a hot take.
Yeah. I mean, Raiders is a masterpiece, though. I can acknowledge that in my adulthood. Back to the Future, E.T., Jurassic Park. That was the first movie I remember seeing in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
I was 5 years old. I just dated myself.
That's okay.
But that's the one I remember. And I loved dinosaurs, as any 5-year-old should.
Yeah.
So
do you remember that? Because I have zero memories from when I was a kid at the movies.
I remember that. That was the first one
Okay.
I remember.
That's cool.
Like I remember my grandfather taking me to see it. I remember what movie theater we saw it in.
That's
like
so
I remember
special.
all of it.
I just recently had to do a little interview for someone's Substack. And I think on there it was like my first movie going experience, and I feel like I would lie because I don't actually know. I can't remember anything.
Yeah, I'm really lucky that for some reason that memory has lodged itself into my subconscious.
So were your parents or the people around you, were they into movies, or was that just kind of something that everyone you knew was going to the movies, watching the classics?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know who showed me that stuff, honestly. Like, I don't know why I started watching it. I remember visiting my grandparents, and they had like a very small collection of VHS tapes that I would watch every time we visited. And I recently realized it was all Tom Hanks movies. I never made that connection.
That's funny.
But they had Forrest Gump, Philadelphia, which I did not watch as a kid. They told me not to. Harvey, Sleepless in Seattle, And I don't know why I never realized it was all Tom Hanks movies.
Have you
but
said anything? Are they still with us?
No.
Oh.
And I wish I pointed it out.
Yeah,
and
because that's
asked
kind of
them,
a funny realization.
yeah, like, did you just love Tom Hanks in the 90s? Like, I don't get
so
it.
funny.
But I watched those a lot as
Cool.
well. And then, yeah, I don't know why I got into those. Like how, kids discover like boy movies.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just sort of emerged.
Yeah.
It just appeared in my life, I guess. But, and like my parents casually like movies, but like my dad likes one movie,
Which movie?
The Blues Brothers.
Oh, cool. That's like a dad movie.
That is his favorite movie. He has watched it 200 times.
Actually?
I can't count.
Yeah.
Probably 200 times.
That's really sweet.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
And I've watched it multiple times
With him?
of the 200. Yeah. Like anytime it's on TV.
That's really
It's
sweet.
on. Yeah. But they're not cinephiles, right?
Yeah.
Like there was never actually the cinephile part came in a little bit later, and it was I was probably 11 or 12, and my best friend in middle school, late elementary school into middle school, had an older brother, and his older brother was a little naughty. He was like 16, and he was like, "All right, you guys are ready." And he was determined to like show us all of these great movies that we were way too young to watch. So he was like,
That seems like a cool brother.
it was the best.
Yeah.
So we were 12 and he's showing us Big Lebowski,
Cool.
A Clockwork Orange.
That's crazy.
We were too young to watch that. What else? The Matrix. The Matrix came out around that time.
Yeah.
So I think I actually went to see that in theaters
Fun.
with my parents. It was like R-rated.
Yeah.
Scary. But
Wait, is that how the rule goes? Like if you're with a chaperone, then you can see the R-rated movie?
yeah, at the time people actually cared about that. I don't
Yeah.
think anybody actually
Cares
cares now, right?
anymore? Yeah.
I don't know, maybe somewhere, but yeah, at the time it's like if you were accompanied, you could go.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I wanted to ask you, so is there a film that you watched that instigated your passion to then want to work in this industry?
yes.
Okay.
The Lord of the Rings.
Oh, yeah. You like all the classics, like the big movies.
Yeah.
Do you know
for
what I
sure.
mean?
Absolutely.
And what about Lord of the Rings?
It was the DVDs.
Yeah?
That's what did it.
And elaborate.
Well, for younger listeners who may not know, back in the day, they used to release a lot of special features on
I
the
miss
DVDs.
all the like behind the scenes and like bloopers and all director's cuts.
Exactly. And the Lord of the Rings, they went above and beyond because they released with each film 10 hours
So crazy.
of behind the scenes that I like still watch because it's so inspiring. That's the first time I heard the term cinematographer, color grading, like second unit, like all of these terms in filmmaking that I'd never even encountered before. But those documentaries were so in depth about the making of those movies, and I think I was probably just at the right age to kind of absorb it. That it started to like dawn on me, like, oh, I love movies, but also I'm starting to see that it's actually a thing you can make, like a thing you can do. Like all the people in these documentaries, like this is their job
Yeah.
to make these movies, and they're just people. So it's like maybe I could do that.
I love that.
Yeah, and I was very into art. I was a very artistic kid. I was drawing a lot, and eventually picked up photography. And I think that was what this was 2001 to 2003. This is when the movies came out and the DVDs as well. And so that was as I transitioned into high school, and it was just like my two interests collided, like creating art and loving movies, and it just all like clicked. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I can do this. I can make art, which is making movies. Like it all just combined.
Oh,
So
I love that.
yeah, it was specifically the Lord of the Rings.
That's
like,
very cool.
Special features, but also I think those films are masterpieces.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Also, you know what I'm just thinking is like you said earlier about the industry just being in a precarious time. It feels almost like now more than ever we need those types of like DVDs and extra, I don't know, like inspiring behind the scenes for like younger generations to be advocates for the film industry.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a shame because they used to like the thing is the DVD market died.
Yeah.
So
I'm just trying to think of like an equivalent of that. That like if anyone on a streaming service or something.
they do it. I mean,
They have like I'm thinking just on HBO or whatever at the end, they'll have like short little.
yeah, they have little interviews.
Yeah.
I saw when they released Wicked on Peacock, they actually had like some behind the scenes
cool.
little featurettes, but it's not the same thing because
Yeah.
they're not as in depth, they're not as elaborate. They're like almost kind of promotional.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just not quite the same. But what we have today that they didn't is this.
Yeah.
And
That's true.
YouTube
Yeah.
and like all these resources that younger filmmakers have like direct access to professional filmmakers and working filmmakers that didn't exist back then. Because like I, was so removed
Yeah.
from all of this that my only connection to it was watching these DVDs. Like I did not have
That
any
is such a
direct
good point.
connection.
You're
You
right.
know,
Yeah.
So it's just kind of shifted, but there is something that's lost. So I wish we could bring it back. It's too bad. There were all the director's commentaries as well, and like that went away, and
Yeah.
it's too bad. But we'll bring it back in this form.
Are there any films that you watch purely for the cinematographer? Like you don't care what the plot is, you just like that cinematographer? Does it work like that?
Oh yeah, good question. I mean, I think there's a few cinematographers that I'll just watch anything that they shoot just because I'm interested. But they usually have good taste, so they'll shoot good movies.
Yeah. That's true.
But pretty much anything Darius Kanji shoots, or Greig Fraser, or Roger Deakins, you can't miss. And also, I just want to see what they do. Yeah, it's kind of, for DPs, it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
It's like for other people, there's certain actors that they'll just watch anything.
Exactly.
You
Yeah,
know?
that's why I asked, because I never think about it from the perspective of someone like you. Because like a regular person that's not in the industry at all, they're going to be like actor, director. Those are the ones that they are like diehard fans for.
Yeah, there's definitely cinematographer completionists
Yeah.
among other cinematographers. But, it's weird because some cinematographers are like total chameleons. Their work looks completely different from movie to movie. And you watch one of their films and you watch another one and you're like, these look like they were shot by completely different people.
Do you like that or no?
I mean, people just have different approaches to it,
Yeah.
Like,
Do you feel like you have a distinct style?
well, I think I see a consistency in my stuff that is not intentional.
Yeah.
That is just like a natural evolution of like my taste.
Yeah, which is cool to kind of step back and reflect on your work and notice those patterns.
Yeah, and I see that with certain other cinematographers. Like
Yeah.
I think with Roger Deakins' stuff, it's like that, or someone like Greig Fraser, or Bradford Young, or Autumn Durald. Like Sinners is out now, and it's like if you look back at all of her previous work, it's like you see the through line that led to this movie in everything else that she's shot, like the way that she lights, the lenses, everything. It all adds up to this movie because that's her taste. And it's funny because when you listen to fellow podcaster Roger Deakins talk about it, he'll like vehemently deny that he has a style. He hates it. He's like, no, I don't have a style. I just do whatever the director needs. But if you look at his movies, they all have a very cohesive look and consistent, texture and lighting approach, and he always shoots on the same lenses. So it's like, I always say that style it's not intentional. Like style implies that you're doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
But it's never on purpose. It's just your taste.
Yeah.
Like manifesting.
Totally.
In your work, which I think is natural for any artist.
Yeah.
And also that's what like a filmmaker wants. That's what a director would want.
That makes
a cinematographer,
complete
right?
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's why you're brought onto a project also.
Yeah, exactly. Like there are other cinematographers who carve a very robust career out of being a chameleon and like shooting things that look very different and zigzagging between different genres and styles and looks.
Yeah.
And that's their strength, is that they don't have a distinct look and they could shoot anything.
Yeah.
And I feel like I can't do that personally. No matter how hard I try, it's just everything ends up looking a certain way. And then you step back from it and you're like, damn it.
Yeah.
I really tried.
I'm a graphic designer, and I think about that a lot where I freelance. And so all my projects, I think, are so different because I have different clients. And so I feel like I'm never in one style and look because I'm adapting to their brand guidelines and their color palette and whatever.
Right.
But I've always had people tell me that my work has a look to it. And I'm like, that's so funny. I didn't think so.
Because you don't do it on purpose.
Yeah.
But there's always a little bit of you that ends up in there.
It's
you
just
know?
interesting that the outside observer can catch that. You kind of said this earlier, but I have a note here that you have a painting background.
Yeah.
How has painting influenced or shaped your filmmaking approach?
Oh, I mean, I feel really bad because I like kind of abandoned
Really?
painting. I mean, it was sort of just replaced with filmmaking.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I was painting when I was younger, and
What style of painting?
I was mostly painting with paints, like with acrylics.
But like what types of scenes? Or
Oh, I mean, I was a kid, I was a child.
Yeah.
So I wasn't like thinking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I was painting, like when I was young, I was drawing dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And then I went to an arts middle school.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so with a kind of focus on painting and fine art.
That's so cool that they would do that at such a young age.
I know, yeah, it's a little weird, but I'm really grateful. So like it's very odd in hindsight that you'd have like 13-year-olds studying, you know, like Renaissance painting.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like really basic stuff. It's like still life, you know, like vases and flowers, and then landscapes.
But I bet terminology and just like the way of viewing a scene and a setup kind of translates from painting to then.
I think the biggest things that I took away from it is like really fundamental concepts about like color theory, composition, things like that I still kind of like reference back to, that sort of naturally transitioned into filmmaking, because you're still composing an image, right? You're still shaping light, you're still composing objects in a frame, and you're still combining colors. All that's the same. It's the same as painting. It's like it's still image composition. It's just three-dimensional, and it moves. But other than that, it's the same fundamentals. So yeah, I think there's definitely overlap, but I didn't have time for all of it. You know, I was just like done with painting.
On to the next.
I'm like, I'm only doing movies now. That's it.
If your cinematography had a soundtrack to it, what style of music would it be? If you were to add a vibe to your work.
The Vangelis score to Blade Runner.
Oh, sick.
Yeah.
Very, very like theatrical and intense.
Yeah, but
Cool.
like kind of electronic.
Yeah. Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Retro, but also futuristic.
What is your favorite type of movie to shoot in your work? So we're going to get more in depth with your latest project and in prior projects, but do you have a style and genre you prefer?
I really genuinely feel like I'm genre agnostic. Like also when I love movies, like people always ask me like, what's your favorite genre to watch? And I always say like, well, I kind of like every genre in theory, you know, like I never want to dismiss a genre wholesale. There's people out there who don't like musicals, don't like rom-coms, don't like horror movies. And then I'm like, but what about When Harry Met Sally? You know, what about Cabaret? You know, what about Chicago? What about The Shining?
Yeah.
Like, how can you just dismiss a genre? There's like masterpieces and great films in every genre, and there's terrible movies in every genre. So it's like so hard to just dismiss something.
Speaking of this past year, is there a movie that stands out to you of something that you saw that kind of surprised you? It was like a movie you didn't think maybe you would have enjoyed, and you left it really resonating either with the story or anything?
Oh, good question. Yeah, a movie from last year that like really surprised me, and it like ended up kind of in my top 10 of last year, like
That's
almost.
a fun pivot.
Yeah, was The First Omen.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of.
I absolutely loved it.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And that's a movie where
amazing acting.
She was amazing.
Yeah.
And you go into it on paper and you're like, okay.
I was a little nervous.
It's like, well, yeah, and but also it's like, I don't really, you know, I just had a whole spiel about not dismissing genre, but there's like a certain kind of horror movie that I'm not typically into.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And And that would be one of them. And also it's like a legacy sequel to a movie that it's like, who really asked for this? And then you go into it and you're like, this is amazing. Like, how did this filmmaker even get away with making this movie?
Yeah.
It's so elevated.
Oh, that was such a cool answer.
Yeah. So that one like really surprised me.
Yeah.
And I just went in with no expectations, and nobody saw it also, which is a shame. But
that's so funny that you're saying nobody saw it, because in my like world, I felt like that was like the movie for a second, but we're in like bubbles, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. In our bubble, maybe people saw it. It was like, but like in my bubble, me and my one director friend saw it, and we were trying to like tell everybody, like, you have to see this.
It was pretty incredible. I agree.
But everyone was like, what? The First Omen? Why would we go watch that? And I was like, yeah, I know. That's what I thought. But like, trust me. But nobody listened. But oh, you know what? I realized I never answered your question about what's my favorite one to shoot.
Oh, yeah.
Well, because there is a different answer, because watching and shooting is a little different. But, at the end of the day, like, the most interesting things to shoot is the stuff that has the most texture.
Okay.
And
what do you mean by texture?
Well, this is the thing. I think people don't realize how much cinematography is like dependent on interesting production design. Like, that makes all the difference. So it's like, if you're filming something that from a production design standpoint, like, looks really interesting and has a lot of like physical texture in the world that you're in, like the spaces that you're in, like the colors and the physical rooms and just the space that the film occupies. That's the stuff that's the most fun to shoot, because it just looks the best on camera.
Totally.
So that's why, like, any DP usually will answer this question with sci-fi, and like the biggest fantasy is Westerns, because it's just
that's cool.
It's instantly cinematic, but nobody really makes Westerns anymore, sadly.
Yeah.
But sci-fi is really fun.
Oh, wow.
Because it's just so like rich in detail, like right off the bat. Everything looks cool.
Yeah.
In sci-fi, that's like what you want at all times. So, like, shooting contemporary stuff can be tricky. Like, it can look really beautiful and elevated, but it can also look kind of drab. Yeah. Like, unless it depends on what the design aesthetic is.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Do you think that movies are becoming too visually dull now? And I say this in mind with, I saw a lot of critiques about Wicked being like, just like color grading, like dull and more subdued. Is that something that is talked about in your world, or is that just internet movie watching banter?
That's a really good question. One thing that's really interesting to me is that a lot of times people, like, the conversation that happens online about the way something looks is based on something that isn't like what the actual movie looks like.
What do you mean?
So, for example, Wicked, which did have a lot of conversation around this, people were talking about, well, there's two things that happen. One thing that I see a lot is, like, people talk about things that aren't even images from the movie. So people conflate, like, production stills, which is like the still photography from the set, with stills from the actual movie. So that's like the first layer of it.
That is such a good point.
Yeah, that happens that I'm already like, okay, we're not even...
You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, we're not even having a conversation within reality.
Yeah.
Once you get past that, another thing that happens is people start talking about, for example, like the trailer on YouTube. And without getting too nerdy, like the layers of compression and, display settings and stuff that like happen to end up on your computer, like the way you see the trailer on your computer, are not reflective of what the movie looks like in the movie theater. And so when you pull stills from it and then say, this looks flat and drab and gray and desaturated, it's like, yeah, you might be right about the YouTube trailer. Yeah. But so, even I sometimes fall for that. But then, I like went to see the movie in IMAX or Dolby Vision, and it's like very vivid. Yeah. And very deep shadows, contrasty, bright highlights, like the colors really pop. And then you're like, oh man, you know, you got tricked again.
Yeah.
Because this whole online conversation is happening around like stills that are pulled from something that isn't even the movie.
This was a very valid response. I'm glad. I feel like this should be one of the clips we post because I feel like it's such a topic on film Twitter.
Exactly. And I'm glad you brought this up because this is a conversation that we have in the cinematography world, because we're the ones kind of crafting these images and then we see these conversations. So, you know, like this is a couple years old now, but there was that Game of Thrones episode that everybody kind of got mad at. And
it wasn't at the finale.
It was near the finale.
Yeah.
It was in the final season.
So dark.
And it was dark. It was dark. It was lit very dark. But if you watched it in a dark room, with a TV that was like set up properly, it looked fine.
Yeah.
It was dark, but you could see it was fine. And part of the problem is that, especially stuff that people look at home, like the settings are all over the place. I mean, people are watching stuff on
like a projector in the middle of the afternoon.
Exactly. Or on their phones or iPads or TVs with the wrong settings and stuff like that. And that's not an excuse. Like, I actually think as filmmakers, we do need to like take that into account. Especially like, for example, on some films that I've worked on, we've done a different color grade for the home video release than than the theatrical cut, which is should be a common practice and I think is on most movies. But I
didn't realize.
Yeah, because you have to accommodate for the way people are going to watch it. You know, like taking into account home displays like TVs and the different settings and contrasts and all that. But you know, it's funny. Like there was a lot of times you also see like manipulated images and people are just, I don't know, passing judgment on stuff that's like has the contrast lifted or that's artificially desaturated or grayed out. And I don't know, it's complicated because on the one hand, like, I don't know, there is stuff that is shot very dark and everything is an intentional choice that you can either agree with or disagree with, you know, as a viewer. But I don't know, people draw like very broad conclusions about stuff that without like having the full picture, I think. And I don't know, it's tricky.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Okay, my final question for the general movie taste section. What is a project you are most proud of and why? And keeping in mind that we're about to get into the creator, I have a little section for it. I don't know if that would be your answer.
No, I'll do a different one.
Okay. And I actually have, well, here, you tell me your answer, and then I have another question kind of tied to that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, the project I'm most proud of, I mean, you know, I've done a lot of projects at different levels and sizes, and obviously I'm very proud of some of the features that I've done, and I'm sure we'll get to it. But I'm really proud of 2 short films that I did with my really good director friend, Tyler Rabinowitz. And they're 2 queer themed shorts.
Cool.
One of which was called See You Soon and the other's Catalina. They're both like really low budget and they're just about like queer love stories. Both, well, one of them was shot before the pandemic and one was during. And I just really love those shorts.
Amazing.
They were just made with like really small crews with a lot of love. And I love how they turned out. And I love Tyler and his writing and his vision. And yeah, I'm really proud of those.
Shouting shorts. Also, this is good to know because I just recently made a like playlist on our YouTube channel of short films for people to like send me recommendations, and I make like a playlist, and
cool.
so I'll add those.
Yeah,
I have it on YouTube and Vimeo, and then if it's not on either, then I think I made an Excel.
Nice.
I just want like short films are so important.
Yeah. Oh, that makes me so happy.
Yeah.
They're definitely on Vimeo. I don't know if they're on YouTube, but they're on Vimeo.
Okay, cool. We'll add them to the list.
Oh, amazing. Oh, he'll love that.
Sweet.
Yeah.
The thing that I put here as like a note is I was lurking your Instagram and I saw that you were the DP for Chappell Roan's Pink Pony Club. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
It's such a funny story because we shot that music video 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And and by the way, I also shot Chappell's first music video.
Wow.
Which is, I don't even know if that music is out. I think it's gone. It was like an EP that had a very different musical style. It was like very moody and gothic. Tyler, the director of these shorts that I just mentioned, actually produced that first music video.
Oh, cool.
So this all kind of connects.
Cool.
Both of them were directed by this other really great director, Griffin Stoddard. He directed both of those videos. And I'm also really proud of both of those. The first one, Good Hurt, is really cool. It's like very gothic and kind of dark, grisly. Pink Pony Club is obviously more kind of fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was 5 years ago, and her whole journey, I mean, if people aren't familiar with it, it's really interesting because she basically put out that song and it did not take off. And we all were so convinced that it would because it is,
really? From the get-go?
well, it's such an earworm.
Yeah.
I mean, we listened to it. I don't know how much people know about shooting music videos, but you can imagine you listen to the song like 100 times when you're shooting. And it's one of those rare songs. You know that a song is good if when you're shooting the music video, you don't get sick of hearing it. And so we didn't get sick of hearing it. It's so good. Every time, over and over and over again, we're hearing it over and over. And we're like, this song, surely. Because her first EP didn't take off either, the one that we did the first video for. So we were like, oh, surely this is it. Finally, she's going to have her moment. This new music, it's fun, it's poppy, it's boppy. And then, like, this was February 2020.
Yeah.
So bad timing.
Yeah.
And it didn't take off. And then she got dropped by her label and went to work at a donut shop and moved back home, and then just started writing more music like independently, and started releasing all these singles that ended up becoming her now Grammy award-winning album, which took off 4 years later. So it's just all kind of crazy.
Such a cool journey.
Yeah, it's wild because she blew up like very quickly, but we were all like ground floor.
Yeah.
You know, on the Chappell train.
And out of all the songs too. That's very cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
Okay, so now we're going to get into our section talking about was this your latest film? The Creator?
Yeah, it was my most recent feature.
Okay, so The Creator that you were the co-DP of with Greig Fraser.
Yes.
And I have a little description of the movie here. The Creator 2023 is a sci-fi thriller set in a future where a war between humans and AI intensifies. A special forces operative is sent to hunt down an AI weapon, only to discover it's a childlike simulant. Simulant? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Simulant with the power to end the conflict. And it stars John David Washington, Denzel Washington's son, who listeners would know from, well, they probably know him, but in Tenet or Black Klansman.
Yeah.
I'm a Tenet stand. I know that's like the movie that people love to talk about if they're pro or against.
Yeah.
Oh, and directed by Gareth Edwards.
Yes.
So, can you talk us through, because this is kind of your ideal scenario, like sci-fi, like we talked about. So what was your approach to cinematography for The Creator? Is that a super vague question?
No, not at all. Yeah, I mean, you can imagine when this project came about, and this was my first studio film.
Yeah.
So I'd been shooting
pretty big.
Very big, yeah. I'd been shooting like indie features and shorts and commercials, music videos, that kind of thing. And then this opportunity came around through Greig, who I knew, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is it! Like,
so
this
exciting.
this is the jump." And what a jump, because like to shoot an original sci-fi film at this level in this time is rare, and with a director who was given like full control to execute his vision. It was like the childhood dream.
Sick.
And, you know, like ILM did the visual effects. I was a Star Wars kid. I saw all the behind the scenes of Star Wars and ILM doing all the visual effects on those movies. And now like I got to work with them. So it was like a very big full circle moment, which was very cool. But yeah, the cinematography approach on that movie was very unique. So if any listeners are familiar with Gareth Edwards' first film, Monsters, he shot that movie with a very small skeleton crew. It's about 8 people in Mexico on location. And he operated the camera by himself. He was his own cinematographer. He did all the visual effects on a laptop. Like on his own. It was like a one-man band. It was shot for like $250,000 or something. And that was the movie that put him on the map and then got him Godzilla, the reboot. So he wanted to make a bigger budget version of that approach, essentially. Like, he wanted to take this original script that he kind of developed and created and then go into the jungles of Thailand and shoot a movie in that same way.
Yeah.
Like, on location, handheld, documentary style, like very improvisational, and then add all the scope and the sci-fi, like, after the fact, and shoot it with a really small crew, like almost like an indie film, but a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. Like,
that is unique.
Yeah, we kind of stuck to it. I mean, it sort of had to expand and contract depending on the scene.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like kind of big action scenes in the movie where we needed more people, and then there's scenes where it's just John David like climbing up a mountain in Nepal where it was 5 people. And yeah, so the cinematography approach also expanded or contracted, like depending on the needs. And there's a lot out there about it. If people want to get really nerdy, like, we shot on a prosumer camera that had never been used on a feature film at this scale before, because of its small size and mobility, and its high sensitivity to low light, so that we didn't need to use a lot of lights. And the visuals, like the lighting style, is very naturalistic, and we wanted it to look like it wasn't lit. We wanted it to look like very much like natural light. So there's a lot of work that went into that to make it look, to light environments like 360, so that you could look anywhere and it all just looks lit. But yeah, I mean, it was such a crazy adventure because Gareth, the director, was operating the camera and shooting it like a documentary. Like, he would just go anywhere, like shoot anything, and improvise with the actors, and
wow,
bring in real villagers in the villages that we were shooting, and like put them in a sci-fi costume and
how funny,
throw them in the scene. It was really special. Yeah,
what
it was
a
really
cool project.
Yeah, and then in post he would pick some of them out and like turn them into robots and stuff. Like, it's a very unique approach, but it was super fun, and I'm very proud of that movie.
I'm curious if there was a scene in The Creator that really pushed you creatively as a DP. Like you're saying, it's such a unique approach. Was there anything that almost kind of took you off guard, or you felt like, okay, this is going to be a challenge?
Oh, God. I feel like the whole movie,
really,
like, every aspect of it was just like completely different from anything I'd done before. I mean, I haven't even kind of mentioned the co-DP situation with Greig Fraser, who, I mean, Greig shot Rogue One and Dune, which he won an Oscar for, and all that. So
you two knew each other? Yeah,
he's sort of been kind of a mentor, and I'd worked with him on smaller things before, but never like a full-on collaboration like this. So you can imagine somebody at that level. I obviously want to do a good job, and also Gareth, and they'd worked together before in Rogue One and all that. So I'm kind of coming into an existing creative relationship, and I have to kind of blend into it. But so like every aspect of this was just like a very unique collaboration between 3 people, and it was a real eye-opening experience that like I've taken so much from it in terms of like letting go of ego and embracing like spontaneity and imperfection and like all of these things that I sort of already liked and was maybe thinking of unconsciously, but this project like made me face them head on and have no choice but to like just forge through. And Greig and Gareth both were very like encouraging of that, and I was just really inspired by their like confidence in just kind of like abandoning conventional wisdom at every possible turn, and just like as Greig says, like burn the ships, like just do it, just take the risk. And I really liked that. So it was like, it felt like every scene was just something, every location we went to and everything we did was just so different from anything I'd done before. So it was cool.
What a sweet experience.
Yeah.
And since that came out in 2023, is it now on a streaming platform for like the listener if they want to see it?
Yeah, it's been hopping around. I'm not
Okay.
sure where it is now. It was on Hulu and then it was on Amazon. It might be on Hulu again.
Okay,
And it
well,
was
I
on
can
Disney.
Google it.
Yeah, it was on Disney Plus for a while. It's
That's funny to me. I never really thought about that, how a movie can just like change which platform they're on, and that's why physical media is important.
I know. I mean, it's always available to rent. Like
Yeah.
you can rent it anywhere, but it's I think it might be on Disney Plus.
Okay.
It's a 20th Century Fox movie, or 20th Century Studios. Sorry Fox. They got dumped. But yeah, so it's like technically Disney owned, but I don't know if it's still streaming on there. Someone can find out.
Okay, and for the film that you chose to do like a little focus segment on today was The Empire Strikes Back. This is the second film in the Star Wars saga. This film, I think, specifically is one of the ones that stands out in my childhood, just of like watching it with my cousins. And I was like, oh, this is a fun pick because like I really have vivid memories. Like I said, I don't have a ton of memories, but this is like some vivid memories I have of watching this. I could assume why you picked this movie, but maybe tell me a bit about what about this movie that you love and why it came to mind.
Yeah, well, I think for two reasons. Like, one is we're recording this pretty close to May the 4th.
Yeah,
and
that was
just
funny.
Yeah, it was just on the top of mind. Which is Star Wars Day for any uninitiated, not nerdy listeners. But the other reason is, I mentioned Jurassic Park earlier, but Empire Strikes Back is the first movie I remember watching. I think I was 3 years old. I don't remember the whole movie.
Yeah.
I remember Yoda.
Yeah.
I remember specifically his like butt. Like I remember him crawling through his hut.
I'm dead. Yeah.
Like that image. And I think like we watched it in daycare. Like I think our daycare teacher, or I don't know what you call it, like put it on.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what started all of this was that movie and that image. So that's what brought it to mind. And then I wanted to talk about it because I think, Star Wars is so pop culturally ubiquitous and kind of well-known and infamous and dissected and revered. And people talk a lot about the like historical game-changing nature of the first one. And people dissect the, plot failings or whatever of the sequels or the prequels and the business side of the Disney thing and all that. And in all of the conversations around Star Wars, the concept, I think nobody really talks about Empire Strikes Back as a film. And I think it's by far the best film of any of the Star Wars movies, just purely from a movie standpoint. And like the reasons behind it, I think are just fascinating. Like every element of that movie, every decision that was made in its creation, the director that was chosen, the way it looks, the whole vibe of the movie is so different from every other Star Wars movie, and I'm just fascinated by it.
Wait, I have something that I put as a note here that, or maybe one of you two put it, but I didn't know this, that they used matte paintings as like backdrop sets.
Yeah.
I didn't even really realize that, like, this movie is dumb, but I just had no idea that was like a part of the process. And do you know like how many of the movies they utilized that of paintings for backdrops?
They definitely did that on all three of them, but it was more so
I don't know what I
utilized-
thought they were using.
Yeah, well, the first one was mostly on location, so
Yeah.
there's not a lot of it. But
Yeah.
the Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi have quite a few matte paintings. But yeah, Empire has a lot.
Such a cool concept. It's like a smaller scale. What is it called? Like in westerns, or any film that they have the huge set backdrops that are painted.
Oh
like,
yeah, like a painted backdrop.
yeah, but there's a word for it.
Oh, I don't know. I think it's just
You
a
guys
painted
know what I'm
backdrop.
Oh, never mind. Anyways, I thought that was a really cool concept.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of, like, one of the things that I always find interesting that nerds will know.
Okay.
But like more casual people maybe don't realize is that George Lucas didn't direct The Empire Strikes Back or Return of the
Yeah,
Jedi.
I'm realizing that also now. Like, as you can tell, I'm clearly not like a Star Wars nerd, but I'm a fan. And
Yeah.
I realized that as I was making these notes.
Well, that's the thing. And I find that so fascinating because you can tell when you watch the movie.
And why?
Because the vibe of it is so different from the first Star Wars that it's like I wish I could be around when it came out to like see how people reacted, because the first one again is like so ubiquitous, and it's also so I don't know, consistent with everything else Star Wars has been.
Yeah.
Like Return of the Jedi very much feels like the first one, and then all the prequels and everything since has all like been trying to feel like the first one, with a few exceptions. And Empire Strikes Back comes along, and George, for whatever reason, he was going through a divorce and also was overworked and stressed, decided he didn't want to direct the second one. It was just too much work, too much of a burden. So he hired a director, and the person that he picks is this guy, Irvin Kershner, who he's 60 years old, and he had only ever directed prior to that like these kind of low budget Roger Corman, like schlocky genre kind of comedies.
Huh.
Like
This is all new to me.
yeah. So nothing about what he had done would scream Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like major mega blockbuster franchise. And it's hard to even think of an analogy of that today. It's almost like if you know, they made Star Wars and then they were like, who's going to direct the sequel? I don't know, Peter Farrelly.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to even think of someone who would be like an equivalent to that. And then, so he comes in and he's like, I'm going to direct this like a drama, like a chamber drama. And the movie, aside from the first action sequence on the snow planet, is like pretty much nothing happens for the rest of it. It's just character stuff for like 2 hours. And it's
That's funny.
You know, it's pretty awesome. It's dark. It's you know, it's like 3 parallel plot lines, where one of which is just these 2 people who kind of don't like each other falling in love, and then the other one is Luke training on the planet with this weird green guy. Like that's most of the movie. And visually, it's also very dark and moody and atmospheric. And the DP, Peter Sushitsky, is also a very weird choice, because prior to this movie, he had only done like low budget, artsy British movies.
I love this.
And the highest profile project he had done before it was the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And
That's so crazy that I didn't know this.
Yeah.
This is so fascinating.
and he later became David Cronenberg's cinematographer. He shot all of his movies.
What?
Yeah. So it's like, why are these people making a Star Wars movie?
I feel like I don't deserve to have a movie podcast. I don't know any of
But
this.
this is why I wanted to talk about it, because nobody talks about this aspect of this movie.
Yeah.
It's like everybody talks about Star Wars as this, you know, like icon of pop culture, but nobody talks about the filmmaking and the filmmakers that made specifically this one, because it's so odd.
Yeah.
And people often say Empire Strikes Back is their favorite, especially cinephiles. But I love to understand why. And also, I wish I could understand how people felt about it at the time.
Yeah.
Because it must have been weird.
Yeah.
You know? Like, everyone focuses on, you know, the twist and Darth Vader's his father and all that. But, like, that's just one tiny part of this movie that otherwise is just, like, very different than the first one. And I'm just so interested in, like, all of these decisions and choices and like what was it like on set. I also think it's beautiful visually. Like the cinematography in it is very underappreciated. It's a very moody, dark, like ahead of its time movie visually. And I love it. I love it so much.
So cool. I learned so much.
Yeah. So that's why I wanted to talk about it.
I'm going to end this section with how Star Wars, and specifically this one, shapes your filmmaking style, if there's any like influence that you got from consuming that is now a part of what you do today.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like Star Wars actually influencing my filmmaking, it's weird, because as much as I love those movies and all the movies that I, you know, grew up on as a kid, I feel like actually as a cinematographer now, like I'm way more influenced by stuff that's like a little more artsy, I guess.
I want to hear, like,
you know?
what?
later in high school is when I kind of discovered like Paul Thomas Anderson and Martin Scorsese and like really got into those kinds of movies, Stanley Kubrick. And we had a video store like down the block from where I lived. And that was when I was like full on, I'm a cinephile and I'm making movies with my friends. And we had a filmmaking class in high school, which was also kind of really rare at the time.
That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, we were shooting on VHS, but like it was still really cool to be able to, start practicing it. So I would go and just go like, okay, I'm gonna watch them all, like whole filmography, start to finish, Spielberg, Scorsese, Kubrick, whatever. And then in college, it's like you get even deeper because that's when you start to, discover like world cinema and Tarkovsky and Antonioni and all that. And I feel like I'm way more visually and, cinematographically inspired by those movies and those filmmakers and the cinematography in that than I am, the kind of more broad, like blockbustery stuff.
Totally.
Especially because that stuff, it's a little older. Like it's a little dated, especially, the original Star Wars, like Indiana Jones, that stuff. It has this very of its time style that is hard to replicate now unless you're intentionally like making something that you want to feel like from the 70s or 80s.
Totally. That makes sense.
So yeah, it's like, I feel like stuff that's a little bit more contemporary feeling inspires me a little bit more.
Yeah.
And directly, although Empire Strikes Back is an exception because that movie like looks very modern. And I would say like the other exception to that is like Alien and Blade Runner, which are also from that time. To me are the two. I
love Alien.
Oh God, it's so good. I mean, both of them are masterpieces, and also visually, to me, are the two greatest looking, like best shot movies of all time, cinematographically.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, those are like.
Not that I can have the cinematic perspective, but they're pretty good looking.
Yeah, those two are on Mount Rushmore of greatest cinematography for sure.
Very cool. Okay, now we are going to end with a little game called Cinematch.
Ooh.
I'm going to give a scenario, a random object, emotion, a concept, so it's kind of all across the board, and you have to match it with a film that nails the vibe. So there's no right or wrong answer. It's just what movie comes to mind.
Okay.
First, we have a cup of coffee at 3 a.m.
Magnolia.
Cool. I like that. What was your thought process?
In high school, we stayed up and watched that movie until 3 a.m. one time, like when I used to be able to stay up until 3 a.m. and watch movies. And I just have a distinct memory of that. Like we started it at midnight and we were like, why are we starting a 3-hour movie at midnight?
Yeah.
And I think that was the first time I saw it. And then I was like, this is one of the greatest movies I've ever
movie.
seen. So I just kind of associate that movie with the middle of the night.
Yeah, I like
for
that.
some reason.
I put mine is random, but I had just watched it a couple days ago. And to me, coffee at 3 a.m. is like an insane thing to do. And so I was trying to think of a movie that's insane. And I just watched Enter the Void. And so that to me, and I don't do drugs. And so I'm like, coffee at 3 a.m. That's kind of like drug vibe. So Enter the Void was my answer.
That is also a movie I watched until 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Because I remember when that came out and I was in college at that point. I was at NYU and we went to see it at midnight at IFC Center in New York. So I also associate that movie with the middle of the night.
Okay, next, the emotion is melancholy.
Ooh. Eternal Sunshine. My all-time favorite movie.
Oh, I have that written here, but for a different scenario.
Ooh.
The smell of... I put Manchester by the Sea.
Oh yeah. That movie's for me is just like straight up sad.
It's really depressing. Yeah. Okay, the smell of summer asphalt.
Oh, summer asphalt.
I'm also just realizing asphalt's such a weird word.
It is. Asphalt. Summer asphalt. The Tree of Life.
Cool.
Yeah. I don't know. There's like scenes of them running through, like the rain in the suburbs on the streets. I don't know. That just popped right into my head. I
have mid-90s skateboarding.
Oh, yeah. Yep. That's
okay.
a good one.
A perfect day that slips away too fast.
Oh, Before Sunset.
That's what I wrote.
I mean, that's like the ultimate A Perfect Day That Slips Away Too Fast movie.
A dream you don't want to wake up from.
Is this Eternal Sunshine?
Yeah.
Spirited Away.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
The color blue.
Blue. Kieslowski's Blue. Yeah.
I put blue as the warmest color.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What home looks like?
I've lived in a few different places. So it's funny because my concept of home is kind of malleable. But I guess my home now and for the last few years has been Los Angeles. So what home looks like is LA. But, you know, modern LA is so boring. So I'm going to say LA Confidential because old school LA is, you know, kind of cool and retro.
I like that.
Yeah.
Mine is not at all what home looks like, but I just thought of this movie when I think of my childhood home, which is Space Jam. I just remember watching it at home.
Yeah.
So it didn't really answer the question.
But you associated, and I like that.
Okay. Time standing still.
Big Fish.
Oh,
Yeah. There's
that's a really good movie.
I haven't seen that in a long time, and I love it. I used to be, if you asked me in high school who my favorite director was, I would say Tim Burton.
Yeah.
And this was before he kind of went off the deep end. So at that time, that would have been a good answer to that question. And then Big Fish came out right when I was in high school. And I was like, this is the best. I still think it's maybe his best movie.
You know what's funny? Big Fish I associate with, like, when I watched it, I really loved it, but it made me feel so uncomfortable. Like, just kind of like freaked out a bit. Now it's like a type of movie that I would be obsessed with, and I am. But I just remember at the time, I wasn't really watching stuff like that, and it just made me feel weird, is the only word I can think of.
It's a weird movie.
Yeah. But now that's like my exact genre. So it's very funny how it's evolved.
Yeah. But yeah, there's that like standing still sequence that just immediately popped into my head.
I have Boyhood. Just still in certain time periods, time frames.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Childlike Wonder.
Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
The original Childlike Wonder movie.
I have E.T., which I feel like is like hand in hand.
It's hand in hand. It's hand in hand.
A relationship that's meant to be but has to wait.
I'm gonna throw a curveball.
Okay.
Gone Girl.
That's funny. That's really funny. I like that. I just randomly yesterday, I just wanted like a movie in the background, and I was watching The Accountant, I think because The Accountant 2 is coming out, but Ben Affleck's on the mind. So that's funny.
Ben Affleck's always on the mind.
Okay. The feeling of being completely alone.
Gravity.
Oh, that's a really good answer.
Yeah, which I really like that movie.
Yeah.
And I feel like it kind of had a little backlash after it came out, and I didn't understand it. I was like, this movie rules. I don't really get it.
I'm trying to think if I like where I saw it. But yeah, that's a cool answer, and it makes sense for my prompt. I put in a different not that different. I put Inside Llewyn Davis. I was thinking more just kind of like, I don't know how to even describe my thought process there, but a different type of alone.
I get it, because that's a movie about being spiritually alone.
Yeah.
And that's a really good answer.
Yeah.
Because he's like out of time. He's in the wrong time.
Yeah.
That's what I love about that movie. Yeah. There's a lot of great alone movies, you know, like Jerry and The Shallows with Blake Lively.
Blake Lively is also always on the mind right now.
True. Also, she's not alone in that movie. She has a seagull best friend. She's fine.
That's so funny.
Named Steven Seagull, which is genius.
Okay, the very last one I have is a quiet, melancholic moment in nature.
Okay, it's a bit of a weird one.
Okay. Because
the movie is not the first thing you would associate with this. You'd probably associate it with like death and war. But Come and See. Oh yeah. Also, I think you were at our Jazeel told me, were you at our screening for it? I was. Yeah. Which was awesome. Because I'd never seen it on the big screen. Yeah, at Vidiots. Yeah. That answer actually does make sense to me, but do you want to explain why that comes to mind? Yeah, there's a great sequence before everything goes insane where it's just the two characters kind of like abandoned by the partisans, like in the forest. And like the sun comes out, there's like a rainbow caught in the rain. And it's just this like beautiful moment in what is otherwise like maybe one of the bleakest movies ever made.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful, but obviously melancholic because of everything else going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's great. That movie is incredible.
Yeah, so heavy. But your answer actually does make sense to me. I get that.
Great.
Mine's like a little bit less impressive. I just put The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Have you ever seen that movie?
Yeah.
I've mentioned it randomly a couple times in this podcast, and I don't know how it's come to mind so many times. But he is he works for Time Magazine. No, Time Magazine, and he like travels the world, and there's just like a lot of cool shots of him all over.
Great footage of him like on icebergs. And
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly.
It's awesome.
Anywho, that's my answer, and that's our game.
What a great game.
I love games.
Me too.
Well, that wraps up the segments I have for today's episode. I am so glad that we got to chat and talk about your film taste and your prior projects. To close this out, is there anything you'd like to plug for projects you've worked on or friends projects or whatever?
Oh, yeah. Well, I recently shot Adam Wingard's new movie. It's called Onslaught, and it doesn't have a release date yet, but keep an eye out.
Cool. I love that.
Hopefully it'll come out soon.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thank you.
A working DP. Impressive.
Yeah, thanks. It's a fun movie.
Yeah, cool.
I think people are going to dig it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I hope you had a good time.
Thank you. I did. This was a real treat.
Yay. Okay, now it's time to get lost.
Good evening.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us 5 stars on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. To stay in touch, follow our Instagram page at It's Intermission Time and share with your friends. As always, Intermission is produced by Jazeel Chu and Olivia Dean, and of course, hosted by yours truly, Megan Braun. This episode is brought to you by The Cinematographer.